AITAH for not wanting to donate sperm to my wife's friends? Hey Reddit, I'm Tony, 38M, and I'm in a weird spot. My wife Olive, 36F, and I have a wonderful marriage. We go on regular date nights, and we are 50-50 with everything we do. We also have a 4-year-old son, Jimmy. From my POV, we were happy, and life was good. Olive has two close friends, Marcy, 30F, and Tammy, 40F. They've been friends since college, practically sisters. Marcy is a successful architect, and Tammy runs a popular bakery. Both are amazing women, but they've struggled to find partners, which eventually led to them being a couple. Things were normal until the subtle comments started. Marcy and Tammy dropped hints about their desire to have a child together. Olive would excitedly chime in, praising their strength and determination. I would offer a polite smile and a generic "that's wonderful," but the unspoken question hung heavy in the air. I would walk away before it could be brought up. Every time I think it's over, they start again. Then things took a turn. There was a casual dinner. Marcy and Tammy arrived early, bearing gifts. The atmosphere was jovial, and everyone seemed to be having a good time. Laughter filled the room as they reminisced about old college days. They took so many glances at me that I felt a growing unease. I knew what was coming. And sure enough, after a few glasses of wine, Marcy leaned forward, her eyes twinkling. "Olive, we've been thinking," she began. Tammy was nodding in agreement. Olive beamed, "Yes. We're going to have a baby, and we want Tony to be the donor," Marcy said, holding Olive's hand. Tammy then looked at me smiling like I already said yes. I was so freaked out that no words were coming out. Then Olive spoke. "Tony, wouldn't that be amazing? It's like Jimmy would have cousins." She then went on about how wonderful it would be for Jimmy to have a close connection to his half-siblings and how we'd be helping Marcy and Tammy fulfill their dreams. I just sat there speechless. I'm not some anti-LGBTQ monster. I think it's wonderful that they want to build a family. But the idea of me being the donor felt intrusive. After regaining my composure, I spoke up. That's a big ask," I said, trying to be polite, but I was clearly flustered. I explained that it felt strange, that I hadn't even considered anything like this, and that I needed time to think. Marcy and Tammy were understanding, but Olive seemed genuinely surprised by my hesitation. Ever since that conversation, Olive has been pushing me. She says I'm being selfish and that I don't understand how much this means to them. She even brought up Luke, 35M, another friend of ours who apparently offered to be a donor for a mutual friend years ago. "See, it's not that weird," she said. I tried explaining that it's not about the act itself, but the emotional implications. It's my sperm. It's a part of me. I'm not opposed to them using a donor, but I feel like I'd be emotionally tied to this child, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. Plus, the thought of potentially running into my biological child at a school event or a birthday party down the line feels complicated. I also worry about Jimmy. What do we tell him? "Hey, buddy, those are your half-siblings, but not really?" It feels like it could be confusing and potentially upsetting for him. I've tried talking to Olive about my feelings, but she keeps dismissing them as overthinking. She says I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. She keeps mentioning how much it would mean to Marcy and Tammy, and how it would create a unique bond between our families. Honestly, I feel like I'm losing my mind. I love Olive, and I want to be supportive, but I can't shake this feeling of unease. So, Reddit, AITAH for not wanting to donate my sperm to my wife's friends? Am I being selfish? Should I just suck it up and do it for the sake of friendship and family? I'm genuinely lost. Update. AITAH for not wanting to donate my sperm for weeks later. Hey Reddit, Tony here. It's been a rough 4 weeks since my original post, and honestly, I'm still reeling. I never imagined things would escalate this badly. To recap, my wife Olive's friends, Marcy and Tammy, asked me to be their sperm donor. I expressed my discomfort and need for time, and Olive completely flipped. Instead of understanding my concerns, she doubled down, accusing me of being selfish and unsupportive. Well, double down is an understatement. She went nuclear. The first week was a constant barrage of guilt trips and emotional manipulation. Every dinner conversation and every quiet moment was an opportunity for Olive to remind me of how I was letting down her friends and depriving Jimmy of cousins. She started comparing me to other men, specifically Luke, who had donated sperm years ago. "Why can't you be like him?" she'd ask, her voice dripping with disappointment. I tried to explain again, calmly and rationally, that it wasn't about the act itself, but the emotional implications. I stressed the potential confusion for Jimmy, the awkwardness of potentially encountering my biological child in the future, and the general feeling of losing control over a fundamental part of myself. She dismissed everything as making a big deal out of nothing. Then, things got personal. Olive started bringing up past arguments, dredging up old insecurities, and using them against me. She even brought up my strained relationship with my father, implying that I was afraid of fatherhood or had some deep-seated issues I needed to address. It was cruel and completely irrelevant. The second week, she started enlisting reinforcements. Marcy and Tammy, initially understanding, began sending me passive-aggressive texts and emails, implying that I was the roadblock in their happiness. They'd send pictures of baby clothes and quotes about the joys of parenthood, all carefully designed to make me feel guilty. But the real kicker was when Olive started talking to our mutual friends. Suddenly, everyone seemed to be on her side. I'd get awkward glances at social gatherings and whispered conversations whenever I walked into a room. People who had always been friendly were now distant, their smiles strained. It felt like I was being ostracized. One night, Olive came home late, smelling of wine and carrying a takeout bag. She sat me down and, with a disturbingly calm voice, said, "Tony, I think we need a trial separation." I was stunned. I had never considered this a possibility. We've always been a team, but she was adamant. She said I was refusing to compromise and that we needed time apart to reassess our priorities. She packed a bag and left. She didn't even say goodbye to Jimmy. The past 2 weeks have been a blur, constantly replaying our arguments in my head. I've tried reaching out to Olive, but she's either ignored my calls or given me terse, dismissive responses. The worst part is the smear campaign. Olive has been telling everyone that I'm the villain, the selfish husband who refused to help his wife's friends. She's painted me as some kind of homophobic monster, despite my repeated attempts to explain my feelings. I've heard through mutual friends that she's been telling people I'm emotionally unavailable and refusing to grow. My friends, the ones who haven't completely turned their backs on me, are telling me to lawyer up. They say I need to protect myself and my rights. But I'm not thinking about lawyers or custody battles. I'm thinking about my son, who's caught in the middle of this mess, and about my wife, who I still love despite everything. I feel like I've lost everything. My marriage, my friends, my sense of security. All because I dared to say no to something that made me uncomfortable. I'm still struggling to understand how things went so wrong, so fast. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I need to fight for myself and Jimmy. I'm not giving up on my family, even if it feels like they've given up on me. Thanks for listening, Reddit. I needed to get this off my chest. I'll update again when I have more to share. Update 2. Last update. Hey Reddit, it's Tony again. It's been 3 months. 3 months of stark realizations, hard conversations, and a strange sense of liberation mixed with deep sadness. After my last update, I was still clinging to a sliver of hope, a desperate belief that maybe Olive and I could work things out. But that hope was shattered a week after my last post. A friend, someone who'd been awkwardly distant lately, finally reached out. He was hesitant at first, but he told me he'd seen Olive with someone else. Not just a casual lunch, but something intimate. He wouldn't give me details, and honestly, I didn't want them. He showed me a picture, and that was all the confirmation I needed. It was like a hard slap, an undeniable truth. My marriage was over. That night, after putting Jimmy to bed, I sat on the edge of his bed, watching him sleep. I felt a wave of emotions, anger, hurt, and betrayal, but mostly a profound sense of responsibility. I knew I had to be strong for him. The next morning, I sat him down at the kitchen table, his little legs dangling from the chair. I looked into his innocent eyes, and I told him, as simply as I could, that Mommy and Daddy weren't going to live together anymore. I told him that it wasn't his fault, that we both loved him more than anything, and that no matter what, we would always be there for him. He didn't understand everything, of course. He asked why, and I just said that sometimes people grow apart. He hugged me tightly, and I held him close, fighting back tears. That moment of raw vulnerability with my son solidified everything. I knew I had to fight for him, for us. I followed my friend's advice and hired a private investigator and a lawyer. I needed to protect myself and Jimmy. The PI confirmed what my friend had told me, and more. Olive had been seeing this person for a while, even before the separation. My lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Liz, advised me to file for divorce immediately, citing abandonment and infidelity. It didn't take long for Olive to get served, and upon her receiving the papers, I blocked her number and all her social media. All communication was going through Liz. It was hard, cutting off someone I'd shared my life with for so long, but it was necessary. I needed to focus on myself and Jimmy. I followed Liz's advice to the latter. I gathered all the necessary documents, kept a detailed journal of everything that had happened, and prepared myself for a legal battle. The PI's information was crucial. It painted a clear picture of Olive's actions, and it was devastating. Then, things started to unravel for Olive, Marcy, and Tammy. The PI also found that Marcy had used Olive's influence in illegal business dealings and gained undue advantages through her connections. This information, along with Olive's infidelity, was brought to light. The fallout was swift and brutal. Olive's reputation was shattered. Her friends, who had once rallied around her, distanced themselves, fearing the repercussions. Marcy's business faced public scrutiny, and she lost significant clients. The perfect couple, image Marcy and Tammy had cultivated, crumbled. Olive, in a desperate attempt to salvage her reputation, blamed Marcy and Tammy. She claimed they had manipulated her, pressured her into pushing me for the donation, and ultimately ruined her marriage. She even claimed that she had been seduced by the new man and that she was a victim. Her attempts fell flat. The judge saw through her facade. He recognized her actions for what they were, calculated and selfish. I was granted primary custody of Jimmy, and Olive was given limited visitation rights. The judge also awarded me a significant portion of our assets, citing Olive's infidelity and her role in the financial irregularities. The feeling was strange. Not exactly victory, but more like a heavy weight lifted. I didn't want to see Olive suffer, but I couldn't let her destroy my life and my son's. Now, I'm focused on rebuilding. I'm spending as much time as possible with Jimmy, creating new memories and trying to heal from the hurt. It's been a painful journey, but I'm finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you, Reddit, for your support. It meant more than you know.